this matter is gradually shifting from a legal case into a political confrontation between the government and the emerging opposition forces?
Well, I would say that it is difficult, if not impossible, to ascribe politics. It's not impossible to link politics to what is happening. It may not be targeted at opposition elements in general, but it's actually targeted at an individual who has political influence, who also has the gift of the gab, and to that extent is capable of galvanizing opposition elements, galvanizing members of his own party of choice, which is the ADC. So it will be of tremendous advantage to the ruling party if we can keep Nasir El-Rufai away for as long as it can, especially during the highly critical political season. And the political season, as you all know, is less than a year to the election. And it incorporates the period of primaries, the period of campaign, official flag of campaign, and the election proper. So if they can keep El-Rufai away, then it will not be able to constitute a nuisance to them during the most critical phase of the electoral season. So they will do whatever it takes to keep him in the slammer for as long as possible. And of course, with the judiciary, you can make that happen because the judiciary sets the conditions for somebody to be granted bail. So if they believe it's a flight risk, and they do believe that it's a flight risk, then they can argue before the courts that, look, this fellow has to be kept away, kept in custody, because we are not certain that he will not try to escape. Don't forget, there are two cases. One before the Federal High Court in Kaduna, the other one before the State High Court, also in Kaduna. Now, he's been granted bail by the in the case involving the DSS, the conditions are stringent. The High Court in Kaduna has also granted him bail, but it is difficult to meet those bail conditions. So, both the State High Court and the Federal High Court have agreed that he should be kept in the custody of the ICPC, and that is where he is. Now, one of the conditions, trying to see the ICPC, let's even establish these facts. El-Rufai has been in detention since February 19, which means that he has been in the slammer for more than 3 months. That's what it means. I'm sure if anyone told him that he would be in custody for that long, they would have argued. Now, the ADC senior leadership went on Friday to try to see him. I'm sure they wanted to discuss some of the decisions that they needed to reach with him, but they were denied access to him at the commission's headquarters in Abuja. The ADC's argument was that the former governor had been denied access to his doctors, food, visitors, despite voluntarily presenting himself to the authorities. But ICPC argues that it acted in line with existing court order. So it's they are saying that when the ADC leaders requested to visit him in custody, they replied them in a letter dated 21st. They made the requests in a letter dated 21st May 2026. The ICPC wrote to them on the 21st of May 2026 and said that it could not grant them access. And the argument was that political friends were not among those that the court said they could visit him. So they are saying that that letter was acknowledged the next day, which means that in spite of them being told in an official letter by ICPC, they still proceeded, instead of being told that, look, you cannot see this man, they still proceeded to visit the place, hoping that they will be allowed to see him. So they see what has happened purely as a political persecution. They can't explain why El-Rufai will be in detention and they will not be allowed to see him. But the argument of the ICPC is that the court granted access to the defendant's family, his doctor, and his counsel. These are the only categories of persons granted access to see him in the custody of ICPC. So anyone outside of his family, his doctor, his counsel cannot see him. As far as they are concerned, they have not done anything wrong. They were only complying with the order of the court that only member of his family, his doctor, and his counsel, his lawyer, can see him. So, but still looking at El-Rufai's situation, it remains extremely difficult to get him out of where he is currently, because if you look at the conditions even stipulated in the bails that is being given, it will be very, very difficult for him to get out. For example, he was asked to bring a letter from a traditional ruler from the state. It is difficult for him to find a traditional ruler because traditional rulers, as we know, are public servants. They are under authority of the state governor, and they're actually supervised by the local government chairman in their domain. So to find a traditional ruler who will be openly sympathetic to El-Rufai and then and who will write a letter that El-Rufai needs to take before the court has been very, very difficult. And it is because don't also forget, he also gave traditional rulers a rough time as governor. He deposed some of them. Some of the people that he deposed have been brought back by this current administration. So the solidarity, to find the solidarity of traditional rulers may not be easy. And any traditional ruler that openly backs him may actually face persecution, or they will be afraid of being persecuted. So for that reason, they will not easily agree to give him a letter asking for his bail. So he's yet to perfect his bail across the courts. The Federal High Court asked for a bail bond in the sum of 200 million naira, with 40 in like sum, and then the letter that I talked about earlier. But the State High Court cited the fact that it could be a flight risk. I mean, the prosecution said that it could actually be a flight risk. They also mentioned the fact that some of the people that should actually be arrested with him are at this time not in custody, and they believe that if they release him, he could have access to those people and even make it more difficult for those people to be arrested. And they cited his opposition to being arrested at the airport the first time. So they believe that shows that if he is released, it will actually use the opportunity to escape not make himself available for his trial. So
absolutely,
that is the situation that El-Rufai has found himself. Absolutely. Yes, granted bail, but to perfect those bail conditions is the elephant in the room. And if you cannot, you can be granted bail. If you cannot perfect it, the option you have is to go before the court and ask for those conditions to be varied. I will expect that his lawyers will exercise this rights to ask the court to vary the conditions, for his to ensure that he is released in line with the position of the law is clear. He has not committed murder, and so he should be free to get bail. But they are also saying, the State High Court is also saying that the claim that he made, that he needed to be released on health grounds, have not been validated with documents showing his true state of health, which they believe makes it difficult for him to come out of custody. They are saying that he has not provided evidence that indeed his health situation warrants him being allowed to go, at least on bail. And there are still other cases that are yet to bring up before him. So this is the election is less than a year away. He spent 3 months in detention. We don't know how many more months we will spend in detention. But as I said earlier, they'll be happy to keep him away because with a good political tactician. He is also very dogged, very determined. We all remember the role he played when we had the Naira repenting exercise. He was the one who led other governors to go to the Supreme Court to get justice, which saved many Nigerians from unnecessary pain. He was also the governor who led others to push for power to go to the South. And when it was said that President Buhari had adopted Ahmed Lawan, the then Senate president, he was also the one who led governors to go and confront the president and ask him whether indeed he had endorsed a particular aspirant. So they know that El-Rufai, when he believes in something, is a dogged fighter. He never gives up easily. So they'll be happy if he remains where he is now,
okay,
and is not out to get actively involved in politics.
absolutely. This is God's Will Otono says, okay, before I take God's Will's message, we've got some earlier messages. Akimbola Onile says, good evening, BQ and Ibrahim. The trial and restriction of bail for El-Rufai is not political, but for security reasons, considering the nature of his case, which may be a threat for incoming elections. Abimbola Olabi says, while tapping the NSA is a serious offense because of the security implications. And Godswill Otono says, Nemesis is what is catching up with El-Rufai. That's why he doesn't know when that word slipped out of his mouth, to the extent the presenter asked him the degree of its claims, and it beat his chest. Nelson Adufe says, those who argue inability to see El-Rufai has no or have no good intentions. They only tried to find sympathy for someone alleged of committing national crime. The families and sureties have been allowed. It's fine. And Godswill Otono, okay, I've taken your comment again. Let me take other people's comments. We have Amina Yusuf saying 3 months in detention and ADC leaders can't even gain access. Nigeria's democracy is beginning to look selective. Today it's El-Rufai, tomorrow could be anybody. Chukwudi Eze says, funny how some people suddenly became defenders of human rights because it's now affecting their political ally. Where were they when others faced similar treatment? Tunde Balogun says, whether you like El-Rufai or not, prolonged detention without transparency damages public trust. And last, Hawa Ibrahim says, some incumbents spent 4 years empowering social media influencers instead of party members. The primaries humbled them.